The first one is it should be very difficult to contact people wanting to escape, because maybe many young men and young women as well, they want to escape this movement, but they want to escape, but they don't, and maybe they cannot approach you yet because they are not ready, and you need to try to get people because at the end of the day you are recruiting for the good one. I mean, sorry, excuse me. You are recruiting for a good cause, not for the bad one. But at the end of the day, what you are doing is very different, but at the same time very similar. You're recruiting people out of hate. How do you spot a Nazi who doesn't want to be a Nazi anymore? Well, who is starting to question whether he wants to be a Nazi or not? Because both Acacia and you talk about how difficult it is to notice. I've read many interviews, or one interview with Acacia, and she says, well, I was not a racist. I didn't like many things, but I was like, well, maybe it's my family or they need me. And she was starting to wonder. So how can you spot a person who is starting to wonder? Because it
Well,
might be very difficult.
you're right. You're right. It is, and it's a pretty delicate process to do these type of things, and to be able to make those connections and see those things. Because one of the things, and there's more research. These are some of the things that we're going to be researching, like how effective is it? The counter messaging is something we're working on, and putting out things like that. If you just go in, from our experience, what we know so far, and we don't have all the data for this yet, but that's in the works. But if you just reaching out to somebody that's in, for example, if when I was in, because I can speak from my own experience and from some of the people I work with, but if someone would have come to me and just said, Jeff, you're wrong. This is about hate. I don't like what you're doing, it's evil, or they try to fight you, or whatever it is, instantly I'm going to get defensive. Anytime, for example, when the authorities would come and knock on my door and try to ask questions or things like that, it would make me angry. So I would be like, okay, well, you're going to question me about, leaflets being thrown out across town. Guess what? Now there's going to be 10 times more leaflets across town. That's how my outlook was. And that's pretty typical, where a lot of times people think they're going to intimidate somebody that's involved, and that's going to help them out, or telling them they're wrong. It doesn't work. Even though they are wrong, they are truly wrong. They don't see that. They won't see that. So it's a very delicate process. And that's why, like, one of the things we're working on is they have to, first of all, they have to be ready. They have to be ready to want to change and to be open to other ideas. And then if they reach out, it's a lot easier, because if they're reaching out or they're having a conversation, it's not just like threats, because we do get that, especially with the work we do. It's definitely dangerous. There's definitely a lot of safer things one could be doing with their life time. But they do, if someone's reaching out and they're not threatening, they're just asking questions, they might even be calling you names. We engage with them. We'll say, well, why do you feel that way? Or what is it about this? And then they're open for dialogue. And that's what we've noticed by sitting with somebody, and even if their ideas and their things that they're saying are so ugly and so hateful, by listening to them, showing them that respect, that even though their ideas are hideous, you're still able to listen. Now it's you have your turn to throw back some ideas and suggestions their way, and try to get them to see your point of view, and they will listen at that point because you listen to them. And of course, this doesn't work 100% of the time, but it's the best tactic that we've found to date, is trying to start those conversations, get them to look at things a different way, just like Daryl and Dia did with me. It didn't work instantly, but it caused me to start questioning things in my mind, and trying to work through those processes while I was still, running this organization. So for me, it was a lot to process when I was that busy. If someone's disengaged from the organization, it's a lot easier to do. But to answer your question, counter messaging, like reaching out to them, it can be tricky, because they will automatically be defensive. They have to psychologically the way I'm trying to explain it is psychologically they have to believe that it's their own. They've come to these conclusions on their own. It's not because you
Mm,
told them or anything like that, because they won't accept that. It's not about you you don't want to force an idea into their head. You want to open up their mind so they see it for themselves and go, oh my gosh, you know what? And then the window is open, the door is open. You can walk through it and help walk them out. So I think the counter messaging campaigns for people to use the messages like for example, on our podcast, the Beyond Barriers podcast, we had Asma Jama on the last week, and she's a victim, a Muslim woman that was a victim of a hate crime. And now she's a victim's advocate and things like that. So sometimes those stories like, look, this is how hate has damaged this person. This is how it has affected their life. And then they start thinking, well, that person has a mom and a dad and children at home and how that has damaged them. I think tapping into that humanity or that human love and caring is, as strange as that may sound. You're talking about you've got to reach the Nazis with love. The the average person, when they hear that, they go, what in the heck is he talking about?
yeah.
Honestly, that's the way to do it. That's how you have to get in through that door. It's not an easy process. So I think by the counter messaging that we're putting out, the more people can see that stuff, like if Facebook will run videos of it, or Twitter, if there can be commercials on the television or cable news, different things like that, or on YouTube when they're watching, say they're watching searching out World War II videos or something like I was as a kid, have a commercial pop up on there that is talking about a victim of a hate crime or something like what we're doing. Talk to that, and then they go, maybe this isn't so cool, even though the uniforms and flags and all that, it makes me look strong and all that. But you know what? Look at what it did to this family. Look at what it did to that person. And then start actually humanizing the victim and humanizing their story, not just saying, well, there's a pile of dead bodies there from 1942. I mean, that's sad and horrible also, but it's a lot of times it's a disconnect because that was 100 or 80 years ago. If you can put somebody on that's alive right now, that's why Holocaust survivors stories are so powerful, and there's so few of them left now. But this type of thing and storying, hearing someone's story is, especially when the mind can visualize it and you can picture, wow, that's what happened. Story that situation, or like what happened to Daryl Davis, where they're throwing rocks at him at 7 years old. No one, unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath, no normal human being can hear a story like that and go, you know what, that's okay to do that to a child. And so I think those stories, especially when you remove the adult context out of it and you put it back in the child context, because a lot of these people have families, they've got kids at home and things like that. So if they can visualize that, like, that could have been my son, that could have been my daughter.
Absolutely.
Boom, you're opening their mind and showing them that, and that's so much more powerful than anything else, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, it's very interesting. Thank you. I 100% agree with you. I think we don't talk to each other, we don't listen. And that's a problem because I've always thought it's impossible for you to be a racist if you know a Jew or a black person. Daryl, sorry, becoming your friend, that black person saying, talk to me, Nazi, or it's great, when you were a Nazi and this man saying, I want to listen to you. I mean, you were saying horrible things. And it was like, well, talk to me. It's great. I remember Bowling for Columbine, documentary by Michael Moore, Marilyn Manson. I don't like his music, but he was great. No one talked to those crazy, scary teens who killed their partners. It's great. That's the point, I want to listen to them because if we don't talk to each other, we keep being afraid of things we don't understand, And I think you are 100% right. We need to fight hate with love, not with hate. If you say you are a disgusting Nazi, I'm not talking to you anymore. So I really agree with you. And I think at the same time, it's very dangerous for you, Jeff, for your reputation, because some people say you are still a Nazi, and obviously, if they see you talking to Nazis in order to help them escaping, they're going to say, well, he's a Nazi because he's texting a Nazi or talking to a Nazi. But how can you help someone if you don't get in touch? So at the end of the day, it's the cycle, So I don't trust you because you talk to Nazis, or you shouldn't talk to them. So at the end of the day, we don't listen to each other. And how? So I really understand your point, which is great.
And
Well,
I'm glad you brought
sorry.
that up. Exactly. That I just addressed that issue on Twitter in the last 2 weeks or less, maybe last week. I posted something about that because I've been accused of that. They said someone had said he still talks to Nazis, so we know he is a Nazi. Yeah. So I posted. I said, hey, some woman criticized me because I talk to Nazis. And I was like, of course I talk to Nazis. I'm not trying. There's nothing to hide about. Of course I talk to them. If I don't talk to them, how can I reach them? How can I help them? How can I keep bringing them out? Of course I'm talking to them. So and the feedback on the thread was really good. Like all these other people were piping in, and some were former extremists and some were people that work in academia, and just saying, yeah, exactly. What are you supposed to do? What can you do without dialogue? So that's incredibly important, and it is difficult sometimes, because I have to once in a while, not so much anymore, but once in a while when I see things like that, when someone will criticize me, it'll be frustrating. I'll be like, yeah, I just need to, sit and do something else for a little bit, calm down, because it's like people will say, well, how do we know you're not a Nazi? Like it's a common question. And on one hand, I think to myself, anybody that knows the movement, it's like, you can leave. Like, say someone leaves, nobody really knows, and they're just quiet, and then they re-radicalize and go back, or whatever is going on in their life, they go back. That happens. But once you speak out, you're worse than their worst enemies. You are like the traitor of the worst, absolute worst kind. There's no going back. I can say from a leadership standpoint of when I was in, there was an individual that we found out and this guy had been in the movement for almost his entire life. Like, he was a well-known individual. He was a leader in our organization, and we found out that he went to his local church and denounced us in front of the congregation, and stood up there and denounced us. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't, but we had people in the area that saw it, and it did happen. So someone had asked me, well, what if he just was having a bad day, or, like we should try to bring him back. We're not bringing anybody back that denounced the movement. Not now, not ever. That doesn't happen. It's not acceptable. And that's sort of one of those unwritten rules. You can't. So that's, when someone questions it, that's the first thing that comes to mind is you can't go back. Even if you wanted to and you re-radicalized, once you've spoken out, there is no going back. So so that gets a little frustrating sometimes, and a lot of people, I think, would just say, you know what, if they're going to keep calling me that and they're going to keep saying these kind of things, then I'll just go do it. Or, you know what, I'm going to stop doing this and not do anything. So, but I'm not that kind of person, I mean, clearly just from my history in the movement, nobody could talk me out of it for 27 years until I woke up and got it in my own head. So they're not going to stop me from this mission either. So I know what I'm doing now is right. Unfortunately, I thought I was doing right before, and I wasn't. But this time is truly right. So we're going to keep doing this work and trying to pull people out, no matter what anybody says. There's always going to be critics. I know guys that were out of the movement for 20 years now, and some of the public guys, that speak out, and they say every once, even now for them, guys that have been out that long, once in a while they'll still have some, well, you're still a Nazi. That's just that's the society we live in. The polarization is so extreme that people don't see these other things. So.